The Queen places one small pea under 20 mattresses and 20 feather beds for the maiden to sleep on. The following morning, the Queen asks the maiden how her sleep was, when the maiden replies that she couldn't sleep well because there was something in her mattress. The family is assured that she is a real princess, because sensitivity is the defining feature of royalty. Finally, the prince has found his bride-to-be. Looking high and low and leaving no stone unturned, a young, handsome prince keeps searching for a real princess to marry. But he can't seem to find any, as he sees something wrong with every princess he meets. One day, a young woman knocks on a castle's door in the middle of the night. Lost, tired, and in dire need of a place to sleep, the maiden claims she's a princess, and the intelligent queen comes up with a fascinating way to test it. At the end of the fairy tale, Andersen tells his readers that this is a true story, and the pea used could be found in the museum. So, we would like to welcome you to our very own version of the said museum. Fun fact, there are speculations that Hans Christian Andersen himself had royal ancestry. On 26 June 1869, Marie-Henrique, whose parents were friends with Hans Christian Andersen, turned 3. Marie loved Andersen deeply and even had a nickname for him, Anders. This book was her birthday gift from Anders. In this book, Marie herself is the protagonist. She gets a tremendous urge to travel and sets on a worldwide trip. This book is a window to Andersen's inner child, his wild imagination, his fondness for the visual arts, and his passion for traveling.
Dun da da da. هناك ألم في مفاصلي.
Olilukoi, Andersen's Dreams Giver, is based on Sandman, a legendary creature from Western and Northern European folk tales. He carries two umbrellas and visits children in their sleep to spread one of these umbrellas over well-behaved children to give them sweet dreams. Andersen used to document his dreams in a journal. This one in particular is fascinating. He wrote, "Then I dreamt about the fairy tale queen who put a blue flower on my bed, a sign I wasn't dreaming, and I felt I woke up and found the blue flower. False awakening. From its juicy leaf came color with which I painted the most radiant picture on the floor." Andersen had the ability to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. He often animated everyday items and gave the simplest of objects gravitas. This room explores the act of lighting a fire spark in two of Andersen's fairy tales. In both The Little Match Girl and The Tinderbox, sparks of light are fast lanes to happier realities where wishes come true. So, close your eyes, hold this matchstick, and make a wish. In part 1 of the story, the devil creates a mirror. Everyone who looks through this mirror ceases to see the beauty of the world and instead sees it as an ugly, gloomy place. The devil becomes so happy with his invention that he takes it to his school, where the pupils lift it high into the sky until it becomes too heavy and falls. When it falls, it shatters into many little pieces that penetrate people's eyes and hearts. The following day, the steadfast tin soldier falls out of the window and embarks on a journey in a paper boat that ends with him being swallowed by a fish. Surprisingly, the fish is caught and sold in the market to the very same family whose house the tin soldier lived in, and so he is reunited with the ballerina figurine. know how adorably small you were when you were first born? Well, there's even smaller. Thumbelina is an unusual child, born out of a flower pot, and her size is no larger than your fingertip. She spends all day with her mother, the woman who planted her, and at night she sleeps on her walnut shell bed by the window pane. One day, a toad sees her and decides she would make a beautiful bride for his son. So he takes her away from her home, and she embarks on a journey, escaping from one miserable event to another, until she reaches her final destination and becomes the queen of all flowers. And the witness to her story, the swallow bird, flies back to Denmark and tells our fairy tales writer all about it. Disney's Little Mermaid is somewhat different from the original work by Anderson, as the sea princess doesn't sacrifice her beautiful voice in order to marry the prince. She sacrifices it in exchange for a pair of legs and the eternal life that humans get after death. This is the Little Mermaid manuscript in Anderson's handwriting. What do you think of the Emperor's new clothes? This story is about an emperor who spends more money on his attire than on the welfare of his kingdom. One day, news spreads around town about a new woven cloth that is invisible to the unwise and for those unfit for their offices. So, the vain emperor decides to make himself a new suit. He hires the two tailors who claim to have this cloth to make him a new attire. Every now and then, he sends one of his ministers or councils to check on his new suit, but none of them can see the cloth. Yet, because they know that only those who are unfit for their offices or unwise can't see the cloth, they return to the emperor and tell him about how beautiful his new attire is. When the tailors inform the emperor that his suit is finally ready, he asks to see it. To his surprise, when they present it to him, he doesn't see anything. Yet, because he's too afraid to be called unwise or unfit to be an emperor, he pretends to like his new suit and decides to wear it on procession day. And so, the emperor marches under the beautiful canopy for his people, who all compliment his suit, afraid to be called unwise or unfit for their offices. Everyone compliments the intricate embroidery or the vibrant colors, except for the one child who simply points at him and yells the truth. But the emperor isn't wearing any clothes. Fun fact, Anderson's mother was a washerwoman and his father was a shoemaker. He then asks a passing nameless magician to look through the magnifying glass and tells him what he sees. And when the magician looks, he sees a great city. This could be read as a commentary by Anderson on how city life was unnecessarily difficult, especially considering how he preferred a calmer rural life. The story containing a story for every day of the week, The Snow Queen, is a magnificent 7-part fairy tale where Gerda is on a mission to find Kay. In part 3 of the story, Gerda comes across an old woman's house where she resides for quite some time. She would sit in the garden with the flowers as each flower had a story to tell. Pluck any of the flowers here to see what Anderson's story it suggests you to read, then kindly plant it back. Grandmother is a story about a grandmother who, instead of enjoying the fresh flowers outside, finds great joy in looking at a flat, dry flower in her silver-clasped book. Aging caused grandmother's face to wrinkle and her flower to wither, and the folds in their skins are testimonies to memories built, wide ranges of emotions experienced, and the valuable lives they led. The Shadow is a story where one evening a foreign man feels his shadow separating from him as he was looking at what seemed to be a silhouette of a woman from his balcony. The next morning, when the foreign man finds himself shadowless, he is assured that he indeed had parted ways with his shadow. Yet, our protagonist doesn't give it much thought because he knows that in warm lands everything grows faster, and he'd have a new shadow in less than a week. The shadow, however, leads a parallel life. He goes to the silhouette, who turns out to be the embodiment of poetry, and from there he embarks on a long journey. He travels near and far, educating himself and engaging with different societies until the day he visits his old friend, the foreign man. The man is fascinated by the full life his shadow was leading. After all, his shadow was about to marry a princess. So, the foreign man decides that he must tell everyone the truth. Yet, nobody believes him when he says that this other man is nothing but his shadow. Instead, they all become convinced that the foreign man himself is in fact the shadow. And as the shadow was marrying the princess, the foreign man who so easily let go of his own shadow is executed.